So you got transferred to Brampton, and I guess it wasn't too far after that. You, well, your sister was in Brampton already, right?
Yeah, yeah, because I actually got Clarence a job to work at Federal Pacific Electric.
Oh.
He had gone to adult retraining in Kitchener, and even after that adult retraining, he didn't have a job right away. At the point, there wasn't a lot of jobs in Kirk Lake. He didn't want to go back to mining, but there weren't too many jobs. But in that interim, I saw a job opening coming up in the company I was working with, and they just wanted a guy to work, like, just use a bandsaw and cut different parts for the production line, sort of thing. And so I asked him to come over for an interview, and sure enough, he came, got an interview, got the job. So now he was working, and his wife was still back home in Kirk Lake, and that lasted for a while. He stayed at my apartment. We shared my apartment that I was staying in with my buddy. And before long, he ended up getting an apartment in Brampton, where he was now also transferred. He got transferred almost like I did, but before me. And his wife Rolly came from Kirk Lake, and they had an apartment there. So when I was transferred to Brampton, they already had an apartment, which I moved into with them.
Okay. Interesting. Okay, so tell us the story about how I know there's something with them and how you met Mom and...
Yeah, so while we were living in Kitchener and going to adult retraining, there was another couple that was living upstairs from them, and it was Tony Ranger and this girl his wife was called Narda. And they made good friends because they were both going to adult retraining, Clarence and this Tony guy. And so I visited them one summer. This is a few years before they had moved to Brampton, and before I had moved to Brampton. So it was just a summer vacation for me. I thought I'd go see my sister and brother-in-law in Kitchener. And then that's when I met Narda for the first time. She was just a woman, nice lady, living with her husband. So everything. We went together and went to a restaurant. We went to a bar, had a few beers, all the four of us, the five of us. Yeah, so everybody was getting along really well, but she was just someone married to this guy, and I didn't see anything of it. I ended up playing cribbage with him, with her husband at the time, and he was a nice enough guy, I thought. And, it was a nice, I think it was about a week visit that I stayed and went back to work. So here I am now, a few years later. We were living with Clarence and Rolly in the Brampton apartment, and during this time, I guess Narda had a falling out with her husband.
They're still living upstairs?
No, yeah, they're still, and yeah, they were still in Kitchener at the time. And Narda had ended up getting a job. She's working for some company that made speaker boxes and stuff.
Okay.
And during that time, he started, not being the husband he should be and running around a little bit. And he spent most of his time in the pool halls trying to make money playing pool. He was a really good pool player. And he'd, go out and play for dollars. But he didn't really have a job. And Narda had a job that wasn't, was paying some money, but wasn't enough to keep him going, really. There were no children involved, so when he was running around, I guess Narda decided that that's it, we're done. And so they kind of separated. And I guess Clarence found out, there were phone calls made back, Clarence and Rolly found out about Narda being alone up there now. They said, why don't you come over for Christmas or whatever, spend the holidays with us. So she got on the bus and came to Brampton. And
so it was Clarence who was mostly friends with...
And Rolly.
Yeah.
They knew Tony as well, yeah.
They were friends with Tony and...
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So Narda came over that one night, and I got to meet her now without her husband, and, heard the story of they're not together anymore. Yeah. And so, we had dinner, and we stayed up late. Clarence and Rolly went to bed, and Narda and I just clicked right off the bat. I mean, we just liked each other right off the bat. I found out that she came from Northern Ontario. I came from Kirk Lake, Northern Ontario. She spent a lot of time in Smoothdock Falls or Ansonville, and connections with Northern Ontario all over. And she was my kind of gal. We had a lot of things in common. And I remembered her from that visit, but just barely,
Yeah.
And we just got along, and during the first night that we were together, we started talking and joking about all kinds of things, and every now we just poke each other like that. And she poked me back, and I'd poke her again. And it just kept going on, and the story would lead from one story to another, and we kept poking. Before you know it, we're doing this. And Rolling Clarence went to bed. It was past midnight. I think we went to about 3 or 4 in the morning, poking each other. And we were enough black and blue all over the place. It was time to go to bed, get some sleep, and let the wounds repair, you know. So that first night would just really clicked really well. Narda was, I think, really impressed that I was a draftsman. She thought that was a pretty good career for a guy to have, and what I was doing and stuff, and she was impressed with that. I felt impressed that she was impressed, you know. So yeah, we got along right off the bat, and so, you know, Clarence would drive her back to the bus depot, and I'd go with him, and I'd say goodbye. I don't think we kissed the first night, but she came and visited almost every weekend after that, because Clarence would keep inviting her and saying, you know, why don't you come over again? You got nothing to do on the weekend? Yeah, come over. And she was very glad to come over, and we'd pick her up from the bus stop. And just to backtrack a little bit, because I'm thinking of something else, a story that I need to backtrack. Well, this thing was going on with Narda and I. When I was in Brampton and had been moved over with that bus stock line of equipment that I was working on, there were a lot of summer students that were hired. They would come to work for the business during the summer. And this one girl got hired to be like a secretary at the plant I was working at. I was drafting. And somehow we met each other and we said, oh, let's go out for a walk during lunchtime. And there was me and maybe another few people that would go for a walk. And then before you know it, not everybody went out for a walk, but just her and I did. And before you know it, we were holding hands. And before you know it, we had dropped a kiss or two. And things got a little more serious. We started dating. Yeah, so I had other girlfriends before her, one called Wendy that I dated for a couple of years while I was living in an apartment building back in Toronto. But here I am in Brampton. No, wait a minute, this is before I went to Brampton. Yeah, let me back up. I was still working in Toronto. So I dated a couple of girls. I dated her throughout that summer, went to visit her parents back in Belleville on a weekend. Things were really getting pretty serious.
Yeah, that's pretty serious.
Yeah, and she was trying to become a teacher in school. She was studying to be a teacher, and then in college. I was getting really serious with her. She could see that I was getting serious, and I didn't get on my knees or anything like that. But here's what I did. Without telling her, because we were talking serious, I went to a jeweler and got a ring. An engagement ring, had it engraved. And then she's back in Belleville, living with her parents now that the summer's over.
Yeah.
And I ended up getting a phone call with her and saying, I was hoping maybe to come up and see you this weekend. I said, I got something special going on. And she says, well, I kind of like started seeing another guy that I was dating.
Oh, no.
And I prefer that maybe we break off our relationship.
Wow.
Oh, boy.
So, sad.
That's disappointing.
Here I am with this ring engraved, and nobody gave it to. Felt really down. Go back to the jewelers and say, anything you can do about taking back this ring? He said, I can't take, he said, I can take the ring back. He said, I can take the engraving off. He says, but I can't give you the cash money for it. You have to buy something in the store. So I think I ended up picking some expensive watch or something. I think it was a watch that I had bought, yeah, back then as a trade for the cost of the ring. And so, yeah, that little affair ended kind of not very good. The other person I had dated when I was still in Toronto was a girl called Wendy, and I dated her for about 3 years. She ended up, without telling me until the last minute, that she joined the Air Force. And she said, next week I'm going off to base.
Wow.
And yeah, it was that short a notice because she didn't want to tell me ahead of time. I don't know. But that's the way that first thing ended up. So I had Wendy, and then I can't remember the one I almost married. I can't remember her name anymore.
Blocked it out because of the way she treated.
Kind of like this cutie over here.
Yeah. Dang. Okay, so maybe that nice fancy watch helped your chances with Mom then. Wow, he's
well, I guess it held it off until I found the right one.
Don't even remember.
No,
For sure, yeah.
Got a nice career. He's got this fancy watch. He's a catch. Okay, so you hit it off well with Mom. Is there a moment that you like figured, other than beating on each other for fun? Like, is there a moment that you knew that she was the one?
Oh, yeah. I knew she was the one, although they didn't maybe declare it outright. And she knew I was the one, because one of the times that she got dropped off at the bus station to go back to Kitchener, Narda said to Clarence, she says, "I'm going to marry that man one day." And wagged her finger, in my direction. But not in my hearing, not my hearing, but in my direction.
All right.
I'm going to marry.
You got nothing to say about it.
And I wasn't going to argue that anyhow, because I was bouncing off from this other relationship that I lost the ring for. I was maybe 7 or 8 months after that happened, and so I was still, on a rebound.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Narda kept coming back and forth, and before you know it, one time, I guess she was 5 or 6 weekends that she kept coming back, and by this time we had hit it off perfectly. And I wanted to be with her. I knew she's still not divorced from her husband. Well, she wasn't with him. She wasn't going to go back to him. So she's like available. And so the one weekend she came back, and during a break that we had, said, "Come on, I want to show you something." I said, "Where?" I said, "Just come on." And held her hand, and we walked down the hall, got in the elevator. She said, "We're going up the building." We went to the 4th floor. And I had a key already. I had already made arrangements to lease this apartment. Opened the door with the key, and she's wondering, "Well, you got a key?" And I opened the door. I said, "This is where we're going to live." And it was empty, of course, at that point. No furniture in it.
Dang.
And she goes, "Okay." So she didn't argue at that point at all. And there was no like, "Do you want to marry me? Do you want to move in together?" I said, "We're going to move in. This is where we're going to live." So it was a nice little apartment, 2-bedroom apartment, and nice balcony and pretty nice place.
That's some confidence, though. That's nice.
So then after that, we went to Bad Boys, and they had a big deal on. You could buy your whole furniture for your house or your apartment all in one place. They offered all the furniture. I think that same weekend or the weekend after, we went to Bad Boys, and we bought everything. We had the couch, the bedding, the coffee tables, hi-fi system, TV, all that. We bought all the furniture, all in one place. Paid a big bucks and had money saved. I was always one to try, never borrow money. I never wanted to ever borrow money and be on loan. So I would, in some cases, I had to borrow from time to time. When I bought a car in the early days, for the most part, I always wanted to have money saved that I could, get a big bite into the big item things and not have to borrow a lot of money. We paid up for all our furniture cash.